Hey everyone, welcome to Growth Rising. Um, I'm Bird, and today I'm just going to talk about some of the planets in astrology because there's like 10 planets, two of them being the sun and the moon. Even though we don't usually look at them as planets, they're considered as planets in astrology because there are certain energies that they give off. But we're going to start with the sun because the sun is more of a masculine energy and well or yang. My notes are over here. So yang, and it also deals with like your ego, creativity, your sense of purpose, basically kind of like how you present yourself. And like whenever, like if you're looking at your birth chart, which is circular, if you're a Leo, if you're born within that time frame, your sun is in rulership. So like whenever your sun is in rulership, that basically means that's when it's the strongest. And like you can think about Leo. I know Leos kind of get a bad rap for being conceited or whatever, but their sun is in rulership. So their sun is literally the strongest in that sign. Not saying that everyone else's sign is weak. I mean, not everyone else's sun is weak. But that's just one of the things about the sun. Next, the moon. The moon is more of a feminine or yin energy. It basically just represents our emotional needs, our sense of security, basically like whatever makes us feel safe. And it's also associated with motherhood. So you can think of like one thing with cancers, not the dangerous, scary stuff. The stuff with cancers that's more nurturing and just very loving. Excuse me. Oh yeah, and the moon actually rules like the body rhythms. So like with the menstrual cycle or your sleep cycle, and the sun, it actually rules like the heart. So the moon is actually in its rulership when it's in Cancer because sun rules Leo, moon rules Cancer. Yeah. And Mercury is actually but kind of like it represents or rules the mind, is the messenger, and it definitely pays attention to details and perceptions. Like you can think of a Virgo because Virgos are ruled by Mercury, big on details. um Mercury could also be kind of witty and curious. You can think of kind of like a Gemini because Mercury also rules Gemini. And um Mercury is kind of like the trickster because like during Mercury retrogrades, that's whenever things can start getting like miscommunicated between people. And if you decide to like send out an email or something, you want to double check. You want to make sure that all your electronics are working properly. It's just what usually happens during the Mercury retrograde. And in rulership, when Mercury is in rulership, is either in Virgo or in Gemini. And Venus, people love Venus because Venus is like beauty and love and harmony, which that's what it rules. Well, that's what it represents, and it rules the senses like sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch, which is all associated with something, either people, money, food, or anything that you can basically taste, touch, see, smell, whatever. And you can think about this with Libra and Taurus, which that's when Venus is in its rulership, is whenever it's in Libra or Taurus. And Libras, they're more like, okay, I want to look pretty. Let me get my hair done, let me get my makeup on, or let me get my hair cut, or whatever. No, I'm not a Libra or a Taurus. And Taurus, like they dress to impress. Like if you need somebody to, you know, kind of give you kind of a guide of how to dress, go get somebody who is Venus rule because they'll probably have some kind of good information to give you. But yeah, that's when it's in its rulership. And Venus could also be a masculine or feminine energy, which is like yin yang energy. And Mars, Mars kind of gets kind of a bad rap sometimes because it deals with, like anger and passion, and action, drive, individual, because that's what Mars is about. Mars is about the self, and it's associated with basically the physical and competition, which if you have any friends who are Aries and possibly even Scorpio, you'll see that because Mars is the modern ruler of Aries and the traditional ruler of Scorpio. And that's basically when Mars is in its rulership, is when it's either in Aries or in Scorpio. And those are basically all of our personal planets, from the sun to Mars. Jupiter is the first of our social planets. And Jupiter, that's kind of like the lucky planet. Some people will associate it with like the god or whatever of the planets because of like the whole thing with Zeus, and we can get into that at another time. But Jupiter is associated with expansion, luck, um, truth seeker, is trying to find something higher to believe in. People who are Jupiter ruled, like Sagittarius or Pisces, they can be seen as a guru or a teacher. And Jupiter represents freedom, optimism, and like I said, expansion and truth. And Jupiter will be in its rulership in either Sagittarius or Pisces. So that's what Jupiter. Oh, and it's also a masculine energy. Saturn. A lot of people think that Saturn, like, oh no, like if you heard anything about a Saturn return, you'll know that people are like, I don't really like Saturn, because they might be like, oh, it's associated with the devil, which we can get into that another time too. It's either Capricorn or Saturn that's associated with like the devil card in tarot. But Saturn is like the external authority. It can be associated with the father figure or just somebody who you look up to. Um, the men are not always the strict one in the household. Maybe it's the woman, but that's just how Saturn is seen as the father, like how Cancer is seen as motherhood, Capricorn, which is the like on the axis, they're literally opposite of one another, like the mother and the father on the birth chart axis, by the way. That's pretty much what Capricorn is seen as. And anyway, back to Saturn. Saturn represents boundaries, rules, limitations, fear, control. This is the stuff that Saturn represents. And Saturn is not as scary. Saturn is just going to be honest with you and real with you and let you know what's real and what's not. And it's in its rulership whenever it's in Capricorn or Aquarius, because it's the traditional ruler of Aquarius, but the modern ruler of Capricorn. And that's the second social planet. And then we go to Uranus, which is like I think it's transpersonal. I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me. We go to Uranus, and it symbolizes, awakening and shattering, like boundaries, basically shattering what Saturn kind of represents. And Uranus is about individuality, being unique, being a one of a kind. And Uranus is also independent. Sometimes it's kind of like before its time, because people kind of catch up to Uranus. Because Uranus, if you look at the planets like physically, like Uranus is the only planet that's in our solar system that we know of that's laying on its side. So that kind of just gives you more of that Uranus vibe. And also, like, it's kind of represents like a rebel. And also, Uranus is the modern day ruler of Aquarius. So that's whenever it's in rulership at its strongest, is when it's in Aquarius. And Neptune is confusion, illusion, creativity, like creative energy. And it also deals a lot with mystery. And it's also a very healing, gentle, yet confusing planet. It kind of gives you kind of like that energy. And Neptune is the modern day ruler of Pisces. So that just come a couple of the things with Neptune. And then we go on to Pluto. See, Pluto is the transformational planet. Although it's no longer considered a planet in our solar system. But it's been kind of going back and forth, which is very Pluto-ish. It's like 1 minute they'll say it's a planet, and no, it's not a planet, and yes, it is a considered that. It's just been something that's back and forth. Right now, it's not considered as a planet. I don't know if it ever will be again, but it deals with transformation. It deals with a lot of psychological stuff. It's basically like, if you have one of those friends who you might talk real deep with, it could be something with Pluto. Like y'all can get into stuff that's like about the afterlife, which rebirth is something that Pluto also deals with, like death and rebirth. That's also like dealing with the eighth house in your birth chart, which is ruled by Pluto because Pluto rules Scorpio. And it's the modern day ruler of Scorpio. So it's in its rulership when it's in Scorpio. And so, like a lot of people who were born like 80s, 90s, your Pluto is in Scorpio. So your Pluto is in rulership. I don't know how far into the 90s, but your Pluto is in Scorpio. So that's kind of cool. It deals with a lot of transformation. It's just basically like continuously growing. But yeah, that's all of the planets that we have went over. And I will probably make more videos dealing with the planets because I'm constantly learning this stuff. And I be just wanting to share the knowledge whenever I'm learning it, because I just feel like, if I wanted to find this stuff out and I had to go up and look for it and read about it and all the stuff, I don't mind sharing because it's knowledge. Knowledge is power. So thank you for listening to me today, and hope to see you next time. Bye.